Please join me. Mr. Perkins, we have a special recognition we're going to do this evening, and that was in recognition of Mr. Perkins, because in the past he had brought me a set of sleigh bells to gavel at a city council meeting. Do you remember that, Mr. Perkins? So out of respect and recognition for you, I brought my own sleigh bells tonight in recognition of you. We'll have a special recognition for him later. We have a declaration of a quorum for our meeting this evening with all members present. Please join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Smith, any changes to this evening's agenda?
No changes.
Okay. So we have a special recognition I'd like to do for Mr. John Perkins, who is also AKA Mr. Santa. We have a certificate of recognition presented to Mr. John Perkins for his tireless dedication to spreading joy and holiday cheer in Hermiston by playing the role of Santa Claus at community events near and far. John Perkins has donned the red and white costume of St. Nicholas for more than 13 years and generously given his time and energy to make merry the Christmas season, especially for young children in the community. Through the challenging health circumstances, he has continued to give of himself and has brightened this holiday season. Let it be known this 13th day of December 2021 that the City of Hermiston genuinely thanks John Perkins for his kind spirit, generous nature, and the example he sets for young people, young and old in the community. Signed by myself, Mayor of Hermiston, Byron Smith, City Manager, and Brandon Arts, our Parks and Rec Director. So, Mr. Perkins, it's my honor this evening to present you with the certificate of recognition. Is there anything you would like to say?
I'm going to give myself up here because I looked on your desk and I never saw those bells.
You never saw them?
So you're being a good kid, I'll tell you what. Thank you guys so much for this. And in my recognition to the City of Hermiston for everything that you guys have done for me, I'm going to take this chair and leave it in your hand. And it means so much to me that it's not just a chair.
Well, thank you. We might have another Santa Claus within our midst that might be able to share that chair after you're done with it. That's capably filled in for you the last couple years that you haven't been able to do the Festival of Trees. So we'll put it to good use.
I know you would. Just make sure and clean it quite often.
Brandon Arts, our Parks and Rec Director, also has.
John, past 4 years getting to know you has been an honor, and seeing what you do for our community, thank you, from the Parks and Recreation staff and the residents of Hermiston, near and far, because you didn't just spread joy here, but you did throughout the region, with teddy bears, with candy canes, everything else. Jeannie, thank you so much for allowing John to do this and being out in our community. And with that, we have another plaque for you. We just thank you for your time with us.
It is a gorgeous picture. It's somehow an ageless photograph. And I look down there and I think, my God, that could have been done yesterday. But I don't remember when it was done, so it doesn't really matter. So, you guys have a good city here. I was born and raised here. And thank you from the bottom of my heart and Jeannie's heart for everything you've given us over the years in assisting us.
Thank you, John. We appreciate you and your time that you spent with us. In fact, I think we have a new train, right? The city train. Didn't that come by way of John's recommendation? Are we using our parade system now? Yep. So John has not only brought us smiles and candy canes and teddy bears, he also now has brought us a train to the city of Hermiston that we use in our parade festival. So, taking off, John? All right. Thank you for coming this evening.
Well, I know the other guy on the council would love to be the first to say this, but I'm going to make sure it's me. Ho, ho, ho!
Thank you, John. Have a Merry Christmas. Take care, guys. The future Santa has some pretty big shoes to fill there.
Some very big boots to fill.
All right. Our next introduction and presentation is Hermiston Chamber Director Val Hoxie. Is she here? Yes, there she is. Come on up. Come up to the microphone up front, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again this evening.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. So I want to thank you first for having me, and if there are any interest in hearing about the dining dollars, I'm happy to answer questions about that. I've heard that there's a lot of questions surrounding that.
Council, any questions regarding the dining dollars? How's the program going?
Fantastic.
Yes, we're giving out all the money?
The exposure is terrific. The experience has been great. I wished I would have been in from the beginning, but I jumped in the middle, and it was my pleasure, yeah.
Good. Have we given out all the money yet?
No, we have not. We have a couple hundred left to give out, but remember there was 4,900 coupons to give out, so a couple hundred in 90 days left, I think is pretty good.
That's awesome. So, Mr. Smith, remind me, how much money was allocated to this?
50,000 to the dining dollars, and we then 5,000 for the chamber's efforts in helping us.
So that's awesome. $50,000 reallocated to local businesses.
Restaurants.
And restaurants specifically, that people could kind of, use their own personal dollars to allocate with these dining dollars to buy a family a meal or go out and have a dinner or a coffee. Or can you give us some examples of?
Sure, yeah. So it actually is $10 outright for each person that shows up wherever the restaurant might be. There's a list of restaurants on the back of the dining dollar. I don't know if any of you have seen them, but you can take those and redeem them at the restaurants. The restaurants submit them to the chamber, and the chamber issues each restaurant a check for those amount of dollars.
Excellent. And so it's been pretty well received?
Yes, people love it. Doesn't matter what time in the morning. I think I've been out there a couple times at 6, 5:30, 7, rain, shine, dark, light, yeah.
Wind?
Wind. Wind. Yes. Well, there is no expiration dates on the coupons because you cannot put expiration dates on coupons any longer. So the coupons can go as long as they are in the city, but we're seeing them return really quickly. So I really don't anticipate it to go deep into 22.
So if a person hasn't been able to participate and they would like to get these last couple hundred, how do they go about that?
watch our Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hermiston Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and you're going to do some more events still?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We have a lot planned.
All right. Perfect. What else is going on?
Well, we're going to round up the end of the year, and then 2022 we have some workforce development classes planned. We have a few things swirling in our head, and again, if you watch our Facebook page, you'll see those, but things are going really well. We're getting a lot more traffic. I think the exposure on 395 is terrific. Our reader board went up today, hopefully active tomorrow. So we're excited about that. Membership is going back up again. Yeah, I think things are on the right track.
Perfect. Would you like to introduce your assistant?
I would.
Yeah.
This is Amy Little. She is the Public Relations Director, and she has just nailed our social media and, yeah, doing a great job.
Welcome, Amy.
Happy to have her. It's been, yeah, it shows my smart management skills to hire well.
Well, your new facility, I've been in it, looks amazing. You guys did a great
Thank
job in
you.
remodeling that. Definite presence on 395 that's got a high visibility, and the inside also is a very nice facility. Can you explain some of the spaces inside that you're planning to use and how you're going to do that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks for asking that. So when you walk in, you see a very receiving lounge. I explain it as kind of a coffee shop vibe. And then the office is around the corner, and I like to call it the office because Amy and I both spend a lot of time there brainstorming and looking at stuff. And then we have a conference room that is open for our members to use. They're using it for many different reasons. Interviews, conferences, we have our board meetings there. And then we have a copy room in the back. It's not real big, but if you haven't seen it, stop by.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility.
Love to show it off.
Yeah,
It's
you guys have
nice.
done a nice job.
Thank you.
Any questions for the council? Well, Val, thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate your partnership with the city and helping us with the Dining Dollars program. It was the council's way and working with the chamber to try and facilitate some of the ARPA federal funding to get back to the community and support those local businesses that have really been hit hard during this last year during COVID. We appreciate your partnership with that, and we look forward to more partnerships in the future.
Yeah, we do as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming this evening. All right, next presentation, Hermiston School District, Mr. Jake Bacon. Welcome, Jake.
Good evening. Well, I'd like to say that I was very lucky to be involved in receiving one of the dollars at Daily Fix a month or two ago. So,
Nice.
Great program. UA still have 2 schools being built, so that's kind of exciting. Still seems to be an excitement every day. Progress is still on track, working to hit those July deadlines. There are some challenges that have come up with access to materials at times, but the group's been working through that and has been able to rectify solutions to get through it. And lately, the big topic has been roof fasteners, which I'm not even going to start to explain, but it's good to keep the roof on. So they're having to kind of get some workarounds to make sure that they can meet code and get it taken care of, but they're progressing forward with it, and it's going well. So they're working really hard to try and get them all dried in, so that way they can start putting up sheetrock and doing some of the wiring inside to keep the weather out. It's going pretty good. So as that's happening, we have began our phase 2 process of staffing for Loma Vista, which is something kind of exciting and scary all at the same time. And in fact, we opened up the positions in district right now, and so we'll go through a lottery process. We have some criteria that only so many staff can be moved from one building or one grade level to go into Loma Vista. And then once that is concluded, we'll open up in what we're calling our phase 3, which is our normal hiring process that we jump into every spring. And so that's going well. We'll see how that works and the excitement that comes from it. And a lot tied in with Loma Vista and Rocky. By having those 2 buildings built, we have to realign our boundaries for where kids will go to school and which elementary school they fall into, which is a process that's going to affect every single family, it feels like, in our elementary schools. Even though you might not have the impact to the school that you're going to, your friends and are going to be potentially going to different schools. And so that's one of the things we've been talking about with the families that we've been going out to the PTOs. We've talked to 3 different community events at our PTOs at the schools so far. We've got 2 more coming up in January, and just trying to get the information out and allowing people to give some feedback and ask any questions they might have about boundary lines. The process went through, we had community members from each of the elementary schools, school board members and administrators, and we looked at the boundary lines, where they're at, and through the help of the city, we're able to look at the growth areas and where we foresee the future growth for families and kind of balance those lines. So that way our buildings will be like-sized. And then right-sizing Highland Hills was a big one for us. They've been over capacity for a while, and our goal will have all of the 5 elementaries be right around that 500 mark. They'll fluctuate within that 400 to 500 mark. And then Highland Hills will be right around that 300 students in the building. So that process is happening and taking place right now. Winter season is flying by. So basketball and wrestling is going. We've had band and choir concerts. We've got high school choir coming up and band this week, and kids are moving, and that's a great thing to see. Canned food drive just is getting wrapped up. It was fun to watch Chief and everybody else moving stuff around today while I was hanging out at the tree lot watching them move stuff. And that's pretty cool. I haven't seen the numbers yet, but talked with Officer Myers, and they had a really good turnout. A lot of canned food brought in to support the Christmas Express program. So it's nice partnering with everybody. Christmas break's coming up, December 20th through the 31st, and classes start back on the 3rd of January. So that's a lot of information. I'll take a breath and see if you guys have any questions.
So weren't able to do the typical Christmas programs this year for a lot of the elementary, middle schools. Is that accurate? Yeah, and a couple of years ago they started to provide more opportunities for students to perform for families in the elementaries. They started doing, and I'll credit Stacy Cooley to this one, brag on her a little bit, started the one song shows. And they were just opportunities for a grade level, a classroom, to be able to practice a song and present it. And back in the old days, we did it in person, and families would come in during the school day. During that time, kids would sing, it was fun, they'd leave, the next group would come in. So they took that same format this year, and they did it virtually, but it provided a lot more opportunity for folks to be able to see their kids perform. And so that's kind of one of the ways that they mitigated the elementary challenge of the Christmas concerts. Will the high school concert be live? They will. And they'll host it in the auditorium. The number compared to the high school and elementaries, those elementary, man, they get a turnout. Yeah. I remember having to do shifts. Yeah. Yep. 3 of them, just running them through. Yep. All right. So the schools, you said they're on time. Mm-hmm. Are they still on budget as well? They are. All these kind of supply chain issues? Awesome. They are. So far, what was reported at the last board meeting we're still a long ways out from reaching that end of it, but still right on track with a little bit under budget, which is great to hear. Yeah, exciting. Especially with some of the challenges that may come up with materials down the road, so. We've had similar experience. It's been a common theme. Yeah. How about other counselors? Any other questions from the council? Well, okay. Thank your middle school and high school and elementary principals, I know, and the other administrative staff that helped support the Christmas Express program. Last year was super challenging for us at the city, and trying to put together the boxes and make sure we had enough food for everybody. And now that kids are back in school, I'm hoping those numbers are up and better again this year. So appreciate them partnering with the city and specifically the police department in doing the canned food drives. We couldn't give out all those boxes without the support of the kids in that. So thank them for that.
I'll pass that on.
Chief, you got an update about how we're doing?
I'm tired.
That's a good sign.
I don't have a number. It's comparable to, it's in the higher range of what we've had previously, so they did incredibly well. I think it's about $4,000 in cash just from the high school alone, different events that they did, so
Wow.
it's been good so far.
Awesome. Well, and I'm sure the kids are excited to be back in public, or in the school, participating in the program as well. I know it's always been kind of a highlight for a lot of our kids in the past, is to help participate in giving, and so that's awesome that they're able to do that. So yeah, please pass that along, and not only thank the teachers and the administrators, but all the kids too.
We'll do it.
Okay. Ms. Peterson?
So, in speaking about, having difficulty getting materials and everything, something that just occurred to me, because I know a lot of our school programs use materials in class that are not necessarily, paper, pencil, that kind of thing. Have you run into any difficulties obtaining class materials that you might for like the different ag classes, that sort of thing?
To my knowledge, no, we haven't ran into those. Furniture at times has been a little bit challenging, but as far as what's impacting classrooms, I have not been made aware of any shortages that have really impacted us or that we couldn't work around.
Okay, because I know that there's like the pottery and all the various industry-based classes.
Well, the one thing that has really gotten us, badges. So, as they not having the computer chips, the readers in those, and we are down to our last, 15 or so, and we've been waiting since August trying to get more.
Wow.
But as far as classrooms, it hasn't come our direction to hear that, so.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Bacon. It's always a pleasure to have you come and speak to the City Council. I appreciate the school district's willingness to do that.
Likewise. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas. All right. Mr. Smith, we're now on to the fiscal year 2021-22 financial audit presented by Barnett and Morrow.
Yeah, so we have a new face from Barnett and Morrow. Mitch Boylan's here to present our FY22 audit.
Welcome, Mitch.
Hello.
You ready
glad
for
to be
this?
Here. We're as good as we're going to be, right?
Okay.
New face. I'm not going to say it's an improved face or not, but that's for you to decide. So yes, I work at Barnett and Morrow, staff CPA there. Able to be here tonight. He's across town doing another presentation tonight, so that's where he'll be, and we'll go through this. I know you guys wait for this every year. The most exciting agenda item there is, right?
Always.
So in performing our audit this year, our audit opinion, we believe that the audit evidence that we obtain is sufficient and appropriate to provide our basis of opinion, that the financial statements were presented fairly and accurately for the year ended June 30, 21. And we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be any type of material weaknesses. We were also engaged this year to express an opinion on the city's major federal programs, and that occurs once we have federal award expenditures over $750,000, and with those funds, coronavirus relief funds this year just got us over that threshold, so we had a single audit. And with that, as well, there was a reasonable basis for our opinion on those federal programs, that they were in compliance, and that we believe the city complied with the laws and regulations of spending those federal monies. And of those significant items, or not significant, but federal programs, the city general fund received about $541,000, or expended $541,000 of federal coronavirus relief funds. EOTech received about $209,000 and spent just under $200,000 of that by year end. The airport received airport improvement and coronavirus relief expenditures and had expenditures of about $203,000. And then in total across the city, $997,000 of federal award expenditures occurred during the year. The city had 4 budget over expenditures that we'll look at here. In your packets provided or your financial reports, if you turn to page 95, we'll go over a couple of those there. So here, these are going to be the expenditures of the city's general fund. If you look about halfway down the page there, parks, we had a budget over expenditure of about $7,800. Of note, there was an invoice that was received a few months after the year of about just a little over $8,000 for capital equipment purchase. So that could relate to that being overexpended. And then down, second line from the bottom, transfers out, we're over budget by about $72,000 there, just upwards of $72,000. And then on page 105, this is going to be in the EOTech Operations Fund. With receiving the coronavirus relief funds, you'll see in the second line at the top, intergovernmental revenues, that is over budget by, I believe, exactly the amount that was received in the year of those funds, $209,000. And in relation to that, materials and services was over budget about $114,000, and most of, well, all of that can be related to expending those funds for the year. Last one is going to be on page 113. This is going to be the Energy Services Fund. Capital outlay, we had a budget over expenditure there of just over $221,000. And that line item is going to be majority of line extensions that's billed from UEC, providing the work through HES. And a couple invoices were received or received towards the end of the year that significantly put us over budget there. And then also during the audit, there were 2 prior period adjustments, and what those are is to accurately state the financials for the current period. There's an adjustment made at the beginning equity or the beginning net position for the city, and what those were, first one was in energy services, and the second was in the utility fund, or not the utility fund, sorry, the general fund. So the first one, energy services, pays a monthly fee for admin services to UEC. In the current year, there were 13 payments made for this fee. In the beginning of the year, payments were treated as paid in the month for that month. By the end of the year, they were correctly being paid for in the month following the month of the services provided. So by year end, they were corrected, but we had those 13 payments. So that 13th payment was actually moved back to the previous fiscal year. And in this energy services fund and the business type activities, had the $133,730 adjustment to the beginning net position, and this adjustment had no effect on the previous year's change in net position, just because that fee has not changed. So by moving it back, it wouldn't have changed the actual expenses for the previous year's change in net position in that fund. And then the second one, the city includes refuse billings on its utility statements on behalf of a third party, and the city then withholds a portion of the refuse receipts as payment for billing services and records the revenue in the general fund. The city previously recorded the revenue in the month of receipt rather than the month earned. And the general fund and the governmental activities include a $30,000 adjustment to beginning fund balance. This adjustment increases the prior year's change in fund balances and net position in the governmental activities by just under $5,300. And so that one, same thing as the other one, corrected in the year, and going forward now it's being recorded in the correct period for those. Two items that we have for suggestions for improved operations. The city's June 21 bank reconciliation had significant outstanding deposits of $117,000. Upon further inquiry, it was revealed these deposits were from April 21, and city personnel indicated that the deposits were from the former credit card processor of those utility payments. The processor was uncooperative in the city's efforts to receive the payment, and payment was finally received in November of 21. The outstanding deposits did not cause the financial statements to be misstated because they were received and recorded. They just had not been received as far as cash in the bank. And we would just recommend that the city fortify its efforts to monitor the bank statements and take timely action on like-kind outstanding items. Second recommendation is that city policy requires the general fund to retain an ending balance of 15% of operating expenses. The general fund's June 30, 21 ending balance was below that 15%. And since June 30 of 2019, the general's fund balance has dropped by approximately 2.1 million, while the reserve fund balance has increased by almost 2.4 million. And so overall, the governmental fund balance remains similar over the last couple of years after adjusting for unspent capital bond proceeds. And we consider revising the city's policy, and this is in discussions with the city finance department as well, that to consider the committed fund balance in the reserve fund to also be available for emergency expenditures. So that would become a part of the 15% calculation. And so, in summary on that, I know everyone likes the short answer to the story. The city has a clean audit report for the year, other than just a few comments, and that's where we stand. So, does anyone have any questions on the report or the processes at all?
Any questions? So we'll have this up for approval later in the meeting so we can have conversation at that point, but does anybody have any questions of, were you the actual auditor or you're just here to represent?
No, I was.
You
so
were
yes, I was actually the staff in charge of the audit.
Okay.
Sorry, and then Rick was the shareholder on the audit as well.
Gotcha. So does anybody have questions of Mitch? Mr. Smith, any comments?
Just want to point out it's always a good process, you know, to have somebody from outside take a look at what we're doing, making sure we're looking over things. And the two suggestions that Mitch went over at the end, you know, those are great things for us to look at and see if we can make some adjustments and do a better job. So we appreciate working with Barnett and Morrow.
Yeah. And looking at past recommendations, they've always been updated or changes have been made so that they're not consistent in this report.
That's correct. We tried to make any adjustments that they recommend so that then those same findings don't end up in, or recommendations don't end up in the next year.
Good. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, and I would agree that those recommendations, I mean, there's always that continuous improvement, and I mean, both sides of the auditee and the auditor working together to obviously improve things and do that going forward. So.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. All right. We're now going to move on to the first opportunity for citizen input on our agenda this evening. This would be for non-agenda items. So if there are individuals here this evening that would like to speak to the council, not regarding an agenda item, but anything else, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, Limit your comments to less than 5 minutes and direct them to me. Thank you. It's on.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Andrew Kilgore. I'm not a resident, but I own and operate a crop dusting business. Recently, you guys approved a lease for me to build a hangar, and over the last year and a half, I've been requesting that the lease be changed and be made longer. It's a pretty short-term lease compared to many airports I've been to across the country and in the area, and it's just not very competitive for me to make such a large financial expenditure on a hangar. I mean, we're talking $300,000, and so I'm kind of worried about that. And there's some other terminology in the lease that I've been advised by my counsel that should probably be looked at and changed. For example, your nearest neighbors, Pendleton, they have a 50-year lease with an automatic renewal. Pasco has a 40-year lease with an automatic renewal. Dallasport has a 40-year lease with an automatic renewal. And you can call any airport around the country, and many of them are a lot longer than 20 years. And so I would like to build here. I mean, you've got a stack of potatoes I protected all summer. You've got some onions there I sprayed all summer. I mean, this is where I live and work. I mean, I live in Echo.
At least an extra 3 police officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linton. I think you should be happy to say that you live in a community that has great schools and is safe. The chief always presents the statistics from the police department, and we have a downward trend in violence or theft or crime or those sort of incidences within our town. So I'm not sure about this video that you watched. I'm now going to have to go search YouTube. So yeah, and who put it together? That would be interesting. All right, others that would like to comment this evening? Okay, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. There are 4 items, A through D. Does the council want to pull any of those? Seeing none. Any public comment on consent agenda items A through D? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through D?
So move.
Been moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor Davis, that we approve the consent agenda items as presented, A through D. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. No items removed. Moving on to number 8, ordinances and resolutions. Resolution number 2202, master fee schedule amendment. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're asking tonight for an amendment to the master fee schedule related to airport hangar rental fees, and I'll ask Mr. Morgan to summarize that for you.
Perfect timing.
Yes, so is this, can you guys hear me? Is this one
Nope,
working?
it's not on.
I forgot I also decided that I wanted to start presenting from up here so that the folks online can see us too, rather than me being behind the camera. Anyway, this resolution for you this evening, you'll remember a couple of years ago, you approved increasing the rents for the enclosed T-hangars up at the airport. We really have 3 what we call T-hangar buildings up at the airport. That's where the planes basically nest together back to back, forming Ts. And the one that is before you this evening is what we refer to as our open T-hangars. It was built, we believe, sometime in the 1950s. It basically just functions as a shade structure. It's basically open. It's not into you a couple of years ago, asking for the rate increase on the enclosed T-hangars. We didn't bring the open T-hangars at that time either. But the airport board at their last meeting in December requested that council consider increasing the rents for the open T-hangars as well from $65 a month to $100 a month. As near as we can tell, those rents haven't been raised in at least about 20 years. So the request to adjust the rates up is several-fold. One is to make sure that we're keeping pace with inflation and maximizing the revenue that we can expect up at the airport. But the other is really the open T-hangars. They're generally full. Right now we have about anywhere between 7 and 10 planes parked in that open T-hangar at any given time over the year. There's 10 spaces available in it. But of those planes that are parked in the open T-hangars, a lot of them are on the wait list to get into the enclosed T-hangars. And so it's one of those things where I think the real estate market for general aviation has changed significantly in the past 60 years from the 1950s when folks had airplanes and things. So nowadays, folks that have planes and want to be up at the airport, they would much rather pay more to be in an enclosed T-hangar than have the option to pay less and have their airplane out and get sandblasted, all summer long and that type of thing. So one of the other aspects of this is making sure that we can increase those rents and put that marginal increase hopefully into continuing raising our reserve fund for future T-hangar construction up at the airport with the intention that either we can replace that existing 60 to 70-year-old shade structure with an enclosed T-hangar or add additional enclosed T-hangars in the future. So that's the request before you this evening.
Any questions from the council? Comment?
Last raise.
Yeah, that's purely my guess. It was at least 20 years, yeah.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
So moved to increase the rent.
Been moved by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Myers, that we approve the master fee schedule amendment. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Resolution 2203, authorize grant to build the Belk Park Greenway Trail.
So earlier this year, Mr. Fetter applied for a grant through ODOT to make some improvements. There's a nice kind of short little trail that goes through Belk Park. He made an application to extend that through the rest of Belk Park, but also onto a couple of easements that we had acquired from Sunshine Apartments and Avamere retirement facility. And so ODOT had they've just recently dedicated some funds to doing trails off their system, basically. That's what this grant program is for. And so this project will extend the trail. It will pave it so it's a lot easier to navigate. And the overall cost of the project is estimated at $297,000 up to $266,000, and change will be provided from ODOT, and the city will be responsible for up to $30,000 of the cost. And this project will be completely run by ODOT, so we won't be in control of the construction process, but we'll be able to work with them as closely as we can. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So does that Greenway Trail currently connect with the facilities, or this will allow it to connect with those facilities?
It will allow us. There's a current trail on the easements that we got. We put in some wood chips and put in a trail in there, but there's not currently a trail that goes all the way to the end of Belk Park yet. Is that correct, Brandon? Yeah, that's what I thought. So this will extend it to the end of Belk Park, which will be right across the street from where those other trails, and it'll connect that way.
This will be a hard surface that wheelchairs or scooters or that sort of stuff could traverse. So much better for the residents on the other end of that part.
Right, correct.
Perfect. Yeah, Mr. Primer?
So will we have any input as to the
Dirty mic. Okay. Speak into it.
do we have any input into the construction, I mean, the actual layout and direction?
I mean, we've submitted where we want it to go, and it will go in those locations, but they will. I mean, I guess when I say ODOT will run it, they'll run the bid process, they'll select the contractor, but we will be involved. But this is, I forget how they call it, ODOT delivered project. Sometimes we've done it where they fund it, but it's locally delivered. This is the other way around. So Correct.
That's the best way to do it. Councilor Peterson?
So will they bill us for our portion of it? Will we have to upfront the costs? How exactly will we pay for our chunk? Or will it be something that we pay for and then they reimburse us? How exactly will that work?
Right, so on this project, I think typically we have to pay the money up front and then get reimbursed, but on this one, because it's their project, they will pay, and then when we get to the end, they'll figure out what's our 30% or our 10%, which is could be 30,000, and then they'll send us an invoice for that, and we'll pay that at the end.
I do have a question.
Councilor Barone?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Wait your turn.
Go ahead,
My
Roy.
turn.
Go ahead, Councilor.
My question was, going across the park, I'm looking at the map. Once you start entering towards where the Butter Creek apartments are, there's like, I don't know if there's a drain or is there trees? Are those going to be beautified then, or is that where the path is going to be?
Yeah, we, over the past year and a half or so, we have gone in and cleaned out a bunch of those trees and underbrush, so the trail has a path to go in, and we've tried to leave, there's some of the larger trees that are left there, but yeah, it will kind of just meander through the trees that are remaining.
Thank you.
Councilor Myers?
The irrigation canal, is that still there?
Has it been piped or is it still open? It's open there, it'll go along the edge of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And will that be? And that irrigation, is it safe? Yeah.
Yeah, it's typically not got a lot of water in it down there. It just is a little mushy, I would say.
The trail is offset of the irrigation canal, so there's significant difference between separating the trail from the canal.
Is it within the irrigation right-of-way, and do we have permission to use that space for the trail?
Well, we have permission from the two property owners to put it on their property.
Okay.
So it's away enough from the easement, and the irrigation district is aware of the project, and we've worked with them on cleaning out the drain and everything, so they're aware of the project.
That isn't much of an irrigation ditch.
No, it's more of a drain. I mean,
more,
it's
water.
tailwater, yes.
Anything else, council? Okay. So, any public comment on authorizing the grant to build the Belk Park Greenway Trail? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2203?
So moved.
Been moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor Davis, that we approve Resolution number 2203 to authorize the grant to build the Belk Park Greenway Trail. Roll call.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Councilor Harden, I couldn't hear you, so you might have to turn your microphone on and talk into it. All right. Resolution number 2204, participation in the National Opioid Settlement. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, so the drug companies who produced many different brands of opioids have been subject to a class action lawsuit by a number of states, cities, lots of local jurisdictions, and it's at the point where it's coming to a settlement, and we were made aware of these actions by the League of Cities, and so we took a look at it and have joined the process. And so there are actually two different lawsuits that are being settled. One is with a group of drug manufacturers, and the other is with Johnson & Johnson itself. I guess they didn't want to be lumped in with everybody else, and so these settlements, the funds will be dedicated to trying to either prevent opioid abuse or to help with drug treatment programs, those types of things. And so currently, and again, things are still not finally negotiated, but currently the estimates would be that about $330 million will come to the state of Oregon, and the local jurisdictions involved have negotiated a 55-45 split, so 55 to local governments, 45 to the state. And so estimates right now are about $180 million available to cities and counties in Oregon. And this settlement. And so, again, the final documents haven't been negotiated. They still want to try to finish up by the end of the calendar year. So what we're asking tonight is that with the review of the city attorney, that when those final documents come, that I am authorized to sign on behalf of the city to accept the settlement terms. Now, we didn't include the almost 800 pages of the settlement documents. There's a link to them in the materials if you wanted to read them. But with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Smith, when I looked at this, and I kind of just did a rough calculation, it looks like the city of Hermiston is going to get $250,000, but it's over the course of like 30 years. So it's actually
18?
Yeah, it's actually over an 18-year period.
Yeah, so it's not a huge amount of money that we're going to be able to do a bunch of work with, unfortunately. And they gave them such a long term to pay it off that you really can't make a significant contribution to something one lump sum. So it seems to me kind of an odd arrangement or a deal. I mean, free money's free money. I'm not going to turn it down. But at the same point, it's...
Well, yeah, I mean, we may have wanted to have negotiated different terms if we were kind of on the front lines of that, but that, like you said, it's free money, and what we can do potentially is to partner with the county and city of Pendleton and try to make it a little bit more significant where it could, do some good in helping
drug and alcohol
get a
counseling or
program
something like
going.
that.
Yeah.
I'd be supportive of something like that, I guess. Any other comments or thoughts from the council? Yes, Mr. Barone.
No, just a thought, but this settlement has been going on for a while, and I know at the National League of Cities we talked about the opioid epidemic and what it's done to this country, to the point that over 60,000 people a year were dying of opioid overdose. And so for this to come to a head, not only doctors that were overprescribing oxys and opioids, but also the manufacturers that knew that this product was addicting and yet continued to push their product to doctors to be able to give to patients. And so this was a long web, a long time coming. And for some people, this is more than enough. For others that have lost loved ones, this is not even close to being enough. So if there's any sort of money that we can use to a program here with drug and alcohol here in Umatilla County, then I am for it. And so it's interesting the way that all of this is kind of coming to a front, but if we can do anything with the funds that come to our way, then it'd be great use to the community.
Other comments? Councilor Peterson?
Well, and if you think about, a tree tree starts from a seed, right? So if we think about one dose of, Narcan, to save a life, and then that life goes on to do amazing things. So with the funds that we get and that we then dedicate to programs to save a life or to save a life of a family that can then get turned around, how big of a ripple effect did we just make in our community? And yeah, that's some guy's dad that, they get a kid, and in 18 years, they're going to see him graduate from high school, and they wouldn't have seen that. So that's huge. 18 years, I got a 16-year-old. 18 years is not very much. So yeah, I'd say it's a little bit is a big deal.
Other comments? No? Any public comment about resolution number 2204? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve resolution number 2204.
So moved.
Second.
Been been approved by Mr. Spicer Coon, seconded by Councilor Harden, I believe, right? Councilor Barone, that we approve resolution 2204. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Ordinance number 2334, an ordinance amending Chapter 131 of the Hermiston Municipal Code entitled Graffiti. Mr. Smith.
Yes, so when we made changes to the nuisance ordinance a few weeks ago, there was some references in there to graffiti, and we've always had this standalone chapter related to graffiti, and so we just have kind of made some updates as we've been doing with all of our ordinances. But the one kind of more substantive change that we're proposing is initially kind of the history of this. This original ordinance was put in place to go for people who were just possessing, let's say they had a can of spray paint or things like that, that was something that they could be cited for and on a violation. This keeps those, but it adds also, it didn't actually provide a, someone, if we caught someone actually doing graffiti, that wasn't what we could cite them for. Now, it really was, it was conscious because there's a state code that the officers could cite them under, and there would be a way to deal with that. We're proposing to add this in as a potential violation. You know, it gives the officers another, or the prosecutor, another option when looking at something like this, where maybe a first-time offender, they can offer this, and the punishments are not quite as stiff as the state law punishments. So, you know, it is a bit of a redundancy, but it does offer the officers and the prosecutor an option of another way to deal with this. And if you saw the graph in the packet, some of the efforts that we've made to work on graffiti, it has seemed to be successful over time, and so we're not unhappy with the way the code has been working, but just kind of adding an additional tool that the officers can utilize. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Any public comment on ordinance number 2334? Okay. Mayor requests first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Tubby?
Ordinance number 2334.
I can't hear you, Mr. Tubby.
Am I on?
There you go.
We'll double this up. Ordinance number 2334, an ordinance amending Chapter 131 of the Hermiston Municipal Code entitled Graffiti.
Thank you. Mayor requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting, that the second reading be by title only, and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Tubby.
Ordinance number 2334, an ordinance amending Chapter 131 of the Hermiston Municipal Code entitled Graffiti.
So, when I looked at the statistics, yes? I think it's Chapter 1. Yeah, okay. So I think when I looked at the statistics originally, my computer's not working, so I can't bring the report up right now, but when we originally put the graffiti ordinance in place, we had a problem, and it was a pretty significant problem. And we started with things like certain size markers, paint cans, the possession or purchase of them. They were required to have, I think, to be above 18. So there were some pretty substantial changes that were made. And since then, we've seen a significant drop or decline in graffiti usage. So they have helped I mean, it hasn't made it go away. You still see graffiti around town, but it has made a significant difference. So providing the officers with an additional tool, I think, is just smart, smart management. So that would be my 2 cents worth. Any other comments from the council or questions?
I guess I would wonder, how often do you actually cite minors under the first sections of this for possession, or I guess the other one would be adults for providing the implements to these children?
So for adults, we have that's the only discretion that's been removed from the officers. If we catch a juvenile who's committed the crime, we cite the adult, the parent, every single time. It seems to work. Looking at the graph, you can see the increase to 2008. That's when the Community Accountability Board was formed. And then you can see another dip, 2013, when the ordinance was revised. And so we've seen some good success with regard to holding both the juvenile and a parent accountable.
Other questions, Counselor?
And other people, it's unlawful for any person to provide a minor with these implements. How often do you cite other third parties? I mean, Ace Hardware probably sells spray paint. You can buy markers at dollar store. Does anything happen there, or is that a portion of it that is fairly unused?
Yeah, I would
I'd say that's would be incredibly rare. Can't think of any time that we've used that portion.
Other questions, councilors? Okay, can I get a motion that ordinance number 2334 be adopted and become effective 30 days after adoption by the City Council?
So move.
Second.
I'm not sure who was first.
I think I was.
Yeah, Maria? It's been moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Primer, that ordinance number 2334 be adopted and become effective 30 days after adoption by the City Council. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Smith, the 2021-22 financial audit, do you have any other comments?
No, just, I think you got a much more detailed look at the audit than we do usually get from Mr. Stoddard. But, again, like I said before, we try to use this as a way to improve our processes and take a look at things and get better. So,
Anything surprising in there that needs to be brought to our attention?
no, I mean, I really appreciate the pointing out of the potential that we could calculate our fund balance differently. That's not been brought up to us before, and so it was good to have that conversation. We'll continue to work with them and to figure out how that might be worded and then bring that back for discussion with the council.
And we now have a new responsive credit card company we're working with.
I'll let Mr. K talk a little bit about that.
The whole credit card issue, you have to think about it as a bunch of serious players, i.e. card issuers, who clear through a very, what's the word I want to use, monopolistic background organization to get the dollars moving, called Fiserv at the time. Anybody who takes credit cards at some point will touch Fiserv, or has in the past. We did not find out until 3 months after they closed our account. They were not sending our money to us. We have fixed that. We now have a new provider that took Fiserv's place. As a matter of fact, he went to bat for us on 3 separate occasions to get the problem solved, to where we're now very happy with using them, and he is our champion to that aspect of credit card clearing. And I don't anticipate this problem will ever happen again.
Why did they close our account?
Well, they basically don't get to debit our account for any services anymore, but they also can't put money in. we've gotten the money that we were owed.
Do you know why they closed our account?
We never got an explanation. That's the process. That's the problem with Fiserv. I call my banker, I call my credit card processor, they don't have a contact with Fiserv. They have to have a person in an organization like U.S. Bank, as large as they are. 2 people, I believe, can talk to Fiserv. They won't talk to me as an ultimate customer or my banker who represents my interests for the bank. It was an incredibly frustrating process.
Then no answer at the end of the process.
No answer at the end of the process. We're done with it.
All right. I do like the recommendation of revising the ending fund balance. It gives us some greater flexibility. The question I had to do more about the reserve funds and why that's increased by 2.4. What's the reserve fund? What's that allocated for?
If you remember, the reserve fund is what we call the 08 fund. It's where we take money from the general fund, from the utility funds. We put it in there when we know we're saving for a project in the future, and it's something we're required to do by the state to have this set up this way. And so that's why, I mean, the reason the 08's bigger is because we're doing a lot more projects now than we were 4 years ago, or whatever his time frame was. And now what they're telling us is they think we can still count some of those dollars until they get spent on the project as general fund dollars, because we could take them in an emergency and use them as general fund dollars. So that's what we're going to take a look at, how we could reframe that policy.
But those are funds that are already committed or allocated to another project. That's the reason that they're in there in the first
That's
place.
correct.
So if we did take them away in an emergency situation, then we wouldn't have them to spend on that future project.
Right, but I mean, we're talking about a situation,
Yeah,
you know,
catastrophic.
like the city in Kentucky that just got flattened by the tornado, kind of a thing.
And then the part about the ending fund balance dropping 2.1 million over the last 2-3 years, we're working to.
Well, there was, and that really, if they had looked a little further back, it really was a little further back that started to go down, and the council made some decisions to invest some of our general fund balance in the EOTech project and then in the Harkenrider Center. And so that's where the major spend down on those reserves, on the general fund balance came. And then when we had gotten it to where we were kind of close to where we thought it would be, then we had COVID hit, caused us to go below that policy a couple of times when we didn't get some of the cash flow that we normally get through the summer months. And so that's where that issue is.
So now with some of the COVID dollars, we'll look to rebuild that back up?
Correct. Now we'll be able to have an adequate amount to live through the dry months.
Okay. Excuse me. Any other questions by the council on the 2021-22 financial audit?
I guess my biggest question is, was this packet provided? I didn't see any link in the agenda to this packet.
It was just finished and put together today.
The 165-page report that
Well, I mean, really, there's probably, even if you voted not to accept it, I'm not sure we can change the auditor's findings. It's really just a way for us to document that you saw it and you received it.
But it's also hard to ask any questions, intelligent questions, to the party presenting when it hasn't been provided to us prior to them being here. It would be nice to get something like this sooner than the city council meeting, where I'm trying to flip through it as he's talking. And
Okay.
So there's a statutory requirement that this has to be done by a certain time?
Correct.
And what is that time limit?
The end of this month.
Okay. And so,
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we had a plan to have this thing done in October, but doggone it, one of their third audit partners went and had a child. And so they've been down one person in doing this audit. They have done yeoman's work in getting it to this point because of all the different influences of the COVID issues that affected our finances. I apologize we did not have this sooner to you. Our audit plan was to have it at the end of October. And because of that lack of a person, Mr. Stoddard and Mitch have been putting in 14, 18-hour days, not just for us, but for their other clients who had a similar time frame to finish their audits on their jurisdictions by December 31. Rick could not be here tonight because he's talking to the school district tonight. So Mitch was in the barrel, so to speak. But they made a yeoman's effort to get this done, and I will make sure we have a plan in place just as we did this year, next year, to try to have it done by the end of October.
And then we could review it and be presented. And then we could have it in front of us, and then when he comes, we could ask questions next year.
Yes.
Okay. Any other council questions? Yes, Councilor Duran?
She had her hand up
Oh,
first.
Councilor Peterson.
So if after we've had a chance to, because I mean, you know, voting that we've gotten this and that, you know, if we have any follow-up questions later, can we pass them along and then, you know?
Yeah,
for clarifications?
if it's something that Mr. K and I can't answer, then we would get information
just for
from
clarification,
him.
as you know, a little, you know, late night reading, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So if we have any clarification questions,
Absolutely.
as we move forward in the year, that way we can have good decision making. That
Yes.
would be great.
Mr. Duran?
I guess just a comment. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to look at it. Correct me if I'm wrong, most of the information that is on here is pretty much information that we have seen over the course of the year.
Yes.
Over the things that you have shown on your PowerPoints, and that we have questioned already or have already provided some feedback to you. So folks, other council members that meet with you on a monthly basis to be able to ask questions and bring any other concerns to your attention, correct?
Absolutely.
So I
And
believe...
the information is presented in the manner it is by statute.
Mhm.
They're prescribed to do certain testing, and then the results that they provide and the interpretation. If you look through a number of the schedules, they'll say, this is what we've done. We don't represent we caught everything, but the testing we did seems to indicate this. And in every case when they've done the testing, we've passed the test. We're a small jurisdiction. I've worked in a jurisdiction of 100,000 and over 2 million. The document's this thick in that annual report. This is basically, if I was a business running myself, these are my financials I would show to my lenders or my shareholders. That's what this report is. Certainly I can provide information on better understanding of what you might read, but the end result is, we did business for 12 months, here's the financial results. The auditors looked at it, it's okay. We got a couple of suggestions for your consideration, and that's what we'll do with it. But certainly I'll respond to any question any counselor has, and as Mr. Smith said, if we can't answer it, we'll make sure Mitch or his staff does.
Mhm. And I think the reason for the concern or for the comment is because this is a huge responsibility for us to be looking over as, you know, budgetary concerns. So I also understand his point of view, but I just wanted to ask those questions because I think we've already reviewed most of this information. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Myers?
And
Councilor
the
Myers, yes.
information that is used to compile this, we see on a monthly basis.
Yes,
So,
a summary of it.
correct.
I appreciate the counselor's desire to do due diligence in trying to be as transparent and represent the constituents that they represent to the public, that we have accounting practices that are meeting the standards and we're using their finances accordingly. I think the important part is the management report, which is the 4-page document signed by Mr. Stoddard. I think that's where our role and responsibility is in reviewing that and making sure that there aren't any outstanding issues in that report that they have flagged that we should be more concerned about in our conversations with management. And so, yes, you can dig through every page of that and ask questions, but in the end, I think the management report is the important part. And I'm hearing Mr. K say that next year they'll try and do a better job getting it to us sooner, and that the presentation will come, at the next meeting or the next month. So we'll have plenty of time to review it. So I think that's a fair compromise.
Well, it would have been there, as
Yep.
I said, but for COVID and having a baby.
Yep, everything's COVID this year. Any other comments or questions for the council?
Share our congratulations.
Yeah, offer the congratulations to the partner.
Yeah.
New baby? All right. So we need to have a motion. No, is there any public comment on the financial audit? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the fiscal year 2021-2022 financial audit report as presented by Martin Morrow?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Bremer, seconded by Councilor Duran, that we accept the 2021 financial audit report as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 I'm going to vote no,
Yes.
just because I haven't had a
Yes.
chance to review it.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1 with Mr. Spicer-Coon in the negative. All right, on to the financial report for November. Mr. Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, and I'm not sure what other holidays there are to observe, but I hope everybody has a happy one. Because I don't keep up on that stuff. I'm just a poor, small boy from Oklahoma. So, first off tonight, we look at the Urban Renewal Authority, and believe it or not, they've collected 94% of the tax that we projected for the Urban Renewal Agency so far this year. Last year, they had collected to this point $193,000 of their budgeted numbers. We've already collected $30,000 more than that this year. I expect the past couple of years they have exceeded our projections in tax revenue in the Urban Renewal Agency District. I think we will do it again this year, looking at 223, because that's actually just $17,000 short of where they've been projected to end the year. And I can't imagine December is not going to see some more collections that will exceed that. So this is very good news. I think the urban renewal area is a sign to me things are picking up because people are able to pay their property taxes timely. Moving along from the Urban Renewal Agency, we look at the general fund, actual general fund revenues and transfers. I changed that to revenue and transfers because we move money in and out of the general fund, so I call it transfers as well. For November was almost 600,000 versus our projection of 6,225,000, approximately a $370,000 increase in what we historically would have collected as a percentage of our property tax collections in November. So we're almost $70,000 ahead of where we thought we would be. I think that's incredible. Just to give you a little history, when I got here in December of 2017, property tax collections for fiscal 17 were $4,500,000. I'm sorry.
You clicked the button.
I'm sorry.
Making noises at you.
Fat fingers, I apologize. In fiscal 17, we'd collected $4,005,000 in property tax history through 5 months. Fiscal 2018, a little drop, $4,002,000. Fiscal 19, we took off just short of $5,070,000. Fiscal 20, it was up to almost $5,005,000. Fiscal 21, we're at $5,472,000. And here we are 5 months into fiscal 22 at $5,891,000. Over that period of 6 fiscal years, we've seen a 30% and some change increase in our property tax collections. That tells me Hermiston's on the right path economically and as a center of commerce in this part of the state. I haven't done any research for similar jurisdictions across the state, but that growth of 30% plus in the last 6 years, I'll put against any city in the state. So I agree with Ms. Linton. This is a great place to live, if for no other reason than fiscally we're responsible. I think this gives merit to my supposition last month that people were holding on to their money a little bit because we had lower collections, but they more than made up for it in November. On the expense side, we are roughly $215,000 below projected expenses, or 15% below projected for the total month. All the departments in the general fund continue to focus on mission-critical issues. There's no reason to think that will not continue through the rest of fiscal 22 because we still have some pressures. Although the Build Back Better Act is probably going to pass, it will be a shell of what was proposed, I believe. But as long as the manna from heaven keeps coming from the federal government, I think we have a duty to ask for it and make our life better in Hermiston, America. But we will hold, and I'm really proud of the people who manage our funds in the general fund, because right now we're 21% below projected for the year after only 5 months. Now someone would look at that and say, well, you're padding your budget. No. Our philosophy is we're conservative in what we're going to get in revenue, and we budget what we think we're going to spend in expenses. So we're very conservative on the inflow and not really aggressive, but realistic on the outflow, and they have found ways to still be able to save money. This is the general fund departments. As you can see, we have a couple of departments. Parks is a little bit off. Recreation, we have a lot of programs going on, picking back up. We do have a new city attorney on staff. Legal's going to be probably something we have to look at as a supplemental because we have a person on staff now, not on contract. But all in all, it's looking really good. I will always commend Chief Edmiston for his mindfulness of managing his budget dollars. He does a very good job. He is our largest general fund expenditure department. But I think everybody does a very good job. Even the council is 42% below projection. So you all are doing a good job of not spending money on the city's behalf, although not to the extent that Chief Edmiston does. And also, too, we will have in the budget for fiscal 23 a new overhead cost allocation study to be done. I want to do those every 3 years. Mr. Morgan was talking about inflation and keeping up with costs at the airport. I also want to have that same focus on what are the costs of services provided by general fund departments to our enterprise funds, what are called special revenue funds, not special revenue funds, but non-governmental funds like streets, HES, the utilities, and so forth. And here we have the general fund balance at the end of November. It's approximately $7.5 million, roughly 2.5 times our current minimum reserve requirement of $2.15 million. I have a projection that we should be very comfortably in the black through the end of the fiscal year in June. You can see projected at $3.2 million. At some point in time, I will have to develop a new minimum reserve after this particular audit that shows us what the year-end adjustments were to June, or rather fiscal 21. I'll probably implement that new reserve number for January going forward, the last 6 months of the fiscal year. I'm not sure if it's going to be that high because we did have restrained expenditures because of COVID in fiscal 21. But that number will change every 12 months, and I'm going to make it a steadfast rule from my perspective to change that January to December on a calendar year basis, but it laps over 2 fiscal years. I think that's a more accurate depiction of what's going on. But I'm very pleased that we are way ahead on collections, and I think that will help us carry through the dry months once we get to the year end and have the ability to do some transfers in July 1 to get us back to where we can be in the black through the fall. One of the things that they mention in their suggestions on improvement to the minimum reserve policy, and I'll pick the skate park as an example. We have a reserve fund for the skate park that has 200-something thousand in it, and we're going to get some more money, it looks like. That money is sitting in the reserve fund. We don't have to transfer it to the reserve fund. We can leave it in the general fund. And when it comes time to build the park, we put the money there. Or we save the transfer, leave the monies in the general fund until it's needed, and that would help us build up our reserves. Anything out of the general fund that goes to a reserve account does not have to be moved into the reserve account. The budget can be there sometime in the year. Doesn't say when it has to go. And that's the point that Rick tries to make in his suggestion. Look at our minimum reserve requirement. Can we use reserve funds that come from the general fund left in the general fund? And that makes perfect sense to me. I am ashamed that I did not think of that earlier. But we're certainly going to look at it because it makes obviously perfect sense to me. And that's the benefit of working closely with an audit firm that's local. There's a whole lot of benefit to that. Our utility and street funds, everything's looking good. I will tell you, HES is $907,000 over in expenditures. That's because they had a debt service payment this month of $860,000. And absent that payment, they would have only been $47,000 over, which is minuscule compared to their budget that they have of $9.5 million. But other than that, regional water is always fluid. Last month, they were in the black on both cases. Resources, they were excess. Expenditures, they were low. This month, they're over and under. I don't think it's considered a bad indication. We do these on a 12-month monthly average, straight across the board. So when I say it's something relative to projected, it just means we didn't hit 5/12. It's something more or something less. We don't track the expenditures on a historic basis here like we do the general fund. And we have our capital projects report. Prior to tonight, I visited with Mr. Morgan. Everything here that you see and can read, not there, but in your report, is business as usual. There's no substantial changes that we need to worry about. To the extent that projects have started the engineering, that's the case. To the extent that things are getting started, that's the case. But there's not been any significant change in any of these processes over the last month from prior months' discussions. And finally, we have what we call the City Capitol Hall Projects Report. The airport apron rehab has been pushed back to the spring, as we told you last month. River really close to completion as far as outside work being done. Staff will still do some things there. With the lid and new City Hall, you've seen the new City Hall. Its walls are going up, and pretty soon we'll have the skin on. And we're not like the school district. We do have a roof on it almost all the way.
Get turf established in the other location.
Okay. Gotcha. Other questions?
I guess if I may, I just had a question, and it's kind of been recurring, and maybe I just don't understand what's going on in the Hermiston Renewal Agency. There's a projected revenue for a cash forward of $167,000, but that's never been figured into the actual revenue received. Is there? I mean,
no.
Isn't that carried forward, or when does that get put into the?
That cash forward is what cash was left unspent from prior year, and we carry it forward, but we do not budget to spend it. But we have to account for it as funds in the fund.
Or we can budget to spend for it, but we don't count it as revenue.
Right, it's not revenue.
That's an accounting term. I mean, that's kind of an accounting distinction. It's not revenue, so that's why it stays the same as far as it's all already there, essentially, and so we're just looking at actual revenue, annual revenue.
That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? Financial report? Any public comment? Financial report? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the November 2021 financial report?
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Spicer-Coon, that we accept the November 2021 financial report as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kay. City Committee and Liaisons. Anybody have a report?
We attended a Parks and Recreation meeting on Thursday. It was a full house. It was great with the new director, Mr. Arts, and his staff, and a review of all the Parks Funland updates, especially cameras, fencing, riverfront update, Bark Park update, and then we talked about some upcoming events, like Santa's Pancake Morning. So it was a good meeting.
So what's the update on the Bark Park? Are we getting like
In the spring,
toys
the
or
water feature.
water
and,
feature? Good.
Some shade is shelter shade kind of thing is planned.
Nice. And Mr. Arts, the fencing project, when's that going to start on Funland?
Don't have a specific date that that's going to start, but sometime in the spring. Still trying to nail that down with Park City.
Okay. There was something else you said in your report too.
Pickleball and events that are going on at
EOTech?
There was a lot of activities, recreation activities.
gym night for younger kids, and Tasha said that that was catching on and has been improving, so that's good.
And that's up at EOTech.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so families or individuals can pay a small fee
Correct.
and come up and either participate in pickleball or the evening events?
It's $2, the drop-in fee for playing pickleball in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or in the evening times, 5 to 8 p.m., $2 to come in, shoot around, get your wiggles out, play pickleball, whatever you want.
Perfect. How do you segregate like the pickleball and the other events up there? I mean, do
There's a lot
balls
of
roll over?
There's a good amount of space, so there's enough space in between that we can play different activities.
And it doesn't prevent EOTech from hosting its other events or?
No, we project out with their staff and make sure nothing's going on. And we've had not issues, but scheduling conflicts where, okay, we're not in there that week. And post it on our website if we're not going to be there, so people can check it out there. They don't have a whole lot going on, so great place to recreate.
Yeah. It's excellent. What nights is it available?
Monday through Thursday,
Monday through
5 to 8 p.m.
5 to 8 p.m. So option to go get the wiggles out. I like that. Okay. Any other committee reports? Nothing?
I have some.
Yes.
So I attended the Faith-Based Advisory Committee, and we had a presentation from Martha's House. Julia was there, as well as Mr. Wattenberger. They provided some information and gave us a report that there are 6 families currently there. The projection is on an average for a family to be there 1 to 4 months. It's pretty much a transitional place, those that are looking to find something more permanent. So, and the cool thing about it is that as the families leave to move to something more permanent, they are able to take the things that were needed for that room, like the bedding, the pans, the pots and pans, garbage cans, and things like that. So there is the cost associated, to Martha's House, because on an average, I guess it takes about $350 to restock a room after a family leaves. So they probably might look to contact maybe a church that maybe might be able to sponsor one of those rooms so that they can keep up with all the different items that are needed, and so that each family, it's not a big burden for them to be able to move into a place. So I appreciated hearing about that, and there were other things discussed, but I had to leave because we had a meeting that afternoon, boundary presentation at one of our elementary schools.
Councilor Harden, are you on the Faith-Based Advisory? You weren't there at the meeting? Skipping out again? All right. So, Daniel, what's the annual cost for a room at Martha's House? Nice. And so the $350 allows that transition to happen, to get all clean bedding and all that sort of stuff when they move in. Gotcha. Very good. Yeah, it seems like you could pretty easily find some sponsors for that. That's it. How many rooms do you have? 18. Okay. 6 with sponsors. You're looking for 12 more? Awesome. Okay. Let's make it happen, Hermiston. Mr. Smith, do we have an update on the warming station? Anybody know anything about that?
I have not heard an update. I'm not sure on their activities.
Okay. Yeah.
I can reach out and let you know via email.
Yeah. That'd be great. All right. Any other city committee liaisons or committee reports? No. I have a couple of things that we've done here recently. Mr. Smith and I met with Lisa Trevino and Kevin Toon about the LOC spring planning, or we did a spring planning meeting. Just put that on your agenda. Hopefully you guys are all able to attend the spring symposium that's being hosted by LOC. They're super excited, just so you guys are aware. They're excited to come out here. They're happy to be coming to Hermiston, and they anticipate it's going to be big. So, you know, our LOC executive director is always extra exuberant, but, you know, he anticipates, you know, 400 plus people potentially could come out for this event. So it'd be awesome if it happened. But if you guys have some specific ideas about things that you would like to see us maybe brag about, or specifically talk about projects in our community, not necessarily just Hermiston, but maybe in our region, that other cities could maybe take home as information or opportunities for them to grow, please bring those up to Mr. Smith or my attention so we can maybe add those to the agenda. I was also able to attend the Oregon Business Plan Summit. That was last Monday. Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, the governor were there. Every politician that's running for office was there. It was a good conversation for the business community to talk about its concerns for the state of Oregon moving forward and get them in front of maybe policymakers and legislators. It's always well attended, another good event, some great conversations around the future of Oregon and how it relates to business. I also attended a LOC new member orientation. So as a new member of the executive committee, there was 5 new members that are being added to the LOC board. I was one of those. We'll actually take official office on the 1st of January, and then we had a board meeting afterwards in which I was able to observe the last board meeting of the year. Mr. Smith and I now are both sitting on the executive committee of the LOC board, so that'll happen as of the 1st of the year. OCCMA makes a recommendation for the board on city manager position, and Mr. Smith has filled that role. This will be his last year, right? 3rd year, and that 3rd year is spent on the executive committee. So coincidentally, he and I will be on the executive committee at the same time. So looking forward to that as we help to move LOC forward over the course of the next year. Incoming president is Tania Browning, and vice president is Steve Calloway. Tania Browning is a counselor from Central Point, and Steve Calloway, the mayor of Hillsborough. Other counselor reports?
I'd like to share some.
Yes.
So I thought it was a really great idea to have the cookies at the Victory Baptist Church so that we could get some feedback for the Hermiston 2040 committee. There was a lot of children there. The cookies went fast. The adults also were able to go and put dots on the things that they wanted to focus on. So I appreciate Mr. Barone being there the evening, Mr. Smith and Sarah as well. And I also want to thank the folks from Victory Baptist Church for allowing us to use their facility for that evening. And I also want to thank those that were involved to making it a successful lighting ceremony. We were indoors, basically, you know, talking to folks. But it looked like, you know, it was well attended. People were excited to be out there, and children were as well. I also want to thank Mr. Arts or whoever is responsible for putting the updates on the parks on land. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, safety, the dog park, and the fence and all that sort of stuff. So I appreciate the updates that you do to keep people informed. And everything, all of the activities that you guys are also putting together to keep, you know, kids involved, safe, and so that parents can also know that, you know, they are in a secure location should they want to partake in any extracurricular activities. So I just wanted to thank you for that. It's very informative, and oftentimes I'm like, yay, good job. I don't post anything on there though, but know that I'm cheering you on. Thank you for that.
Others? Yes, Councilor Peterson?
So in terms of the League of Cities, I am on the board of directors for the Women's Caucus, and now I'm also on a subcommittee for that. So it's a fairly new group, and so we are creating the bylaws, and I joined with the issue of trying to make sure it is as inclusive as possible, considering what a wide range of individuals, especially out in Eastern Oregon. It's like I really wanted to make sure that we were being represented. And I know that also the DEI committee is looking for people. So something else that I don't know if any of you guys are going to be interested in joining that, thinking about it, but you know, getting a bunch of us on there would be kind of cool. So anyway, that is, the Women's Caucus is blooming nicely. And I think it's going to be a really awesome opportunity to gather resources and share information that, you know, as we learn little bits about, you know, what's going on in our cities, that we can share a network. And so if anyone has any questions, ask me about it, because you know me, I like to talk. I would be happy to talk your ear off about it. So, but there's a lot going on out there. And they're really happy to hear from us. They're like, oh, you're from Hermiston, awesome. You know, and so, yeah, they were happy to welcome me onto the board for that, so.
Excellent. And I know your caucus president is incoming new board member, right? Catherine Bisco, I believe. So she's new on the LOC board. So, and I know, Roy, you're on the
People of Color Caucus.
People of Color Caucus, right? Yeah, so we've got great representation on our caucuses, and I think the hope and the goal would be to try to get more people engaged and involved and willing to run for the board positions too. So it's a great way for people to kind of get engaged on maybe a smaller scale, and then kind of grow into, hopefully, a board level position. So the board is very diverse this year, which is awesome. I think it's one of the goals of the Diversity and Equity Committee over the last couple of years. And so I think we're at least 50% female now. When I was on the board before, we had 2 females. So I think there's at least 50% now. So that's awesome. And we definitely have some color on there too. So much more diverse board now than we used to be. So anything else from the council? Mr. Smith.
Yeah, so just to kind of follow up on the activities on the Festival Street, the light show goes from 5 to 9 p.m. Each evening. People want to go and enjoy that. And then also, Brandon was telling me their estimate was about 500 people at the tree lighting ceremony. So let's see, Mackenzie Park, this has come up from a couple of counselors, and so I thought I'd just talk a little bit about, you may have seen some temporary fences around the Rotary Cook Shack and the main gazebo shelter there. There was a fire set in the sink of the cook shack, and some other damage and things have gone on there, so we're securing that and looking at permanent ways that we might be able to better protect, particularly the cook shack. There was a great investment in making really a nice addition to the park there. So we're looking at that, and we'll keep you updated as we move forward. And since it's winter time when those things are used less, it was a time for us to be able to secure it and make any necessary repairs. We've talked a little bit about City Hall, but the framing, I think, is almost completed on the interior. And this week they're supposed to deliver basically the outdoor drywall material that they'll start securing. The roofers are working on getting the roof and the insulation on the roof in place. So anticipate pretty soon, probably mid to late January, we might see a dried in building where they could start doing more. They've already started a lot of work in the basement, particularly on electrical and mechanical systems. So the pace seems to have picked up, and I know that's the contractors will tell you that's typically how it goes. Initially, it feels like it goes super slow, but now things are really moving and going well. On the 2040, I just wanted to give the council a quick update on that. We had a call with Sarah today, and she was so excited about the amount of turnout at the open house. So she was really excited about the numbers. She felt it was a great partnership with the tree lighting event to try to get people in and involved. So over the next few weeks, they'll be getting back a draft final report. We've tentatively scheduled a meeting of the steering committee to be January 10th, and then planning to bring the report hopefully with the recommendation of that committee to the council on January 24th, the second meeting of that. So 10th for the committee and 24th for the council. And then have that adopted or at least in front of the council prior to our goal setting on the first week of February. So that's where we're at on that. And then we did briefly talk about Christmas Express, but that's 5:30 Wednesday here in this room. So that is all I have, unless there are any questions.
Are we still on schedule with City Hall?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, still on schedule for the fall of next year. We don't have a solid date yet, but yeah.
What's the stem wall that they're putting to the east in the basement now?
Well, that makes it so we can have the windows on that side. Sets it up so it will hold back kind of that dirt a little bit, so that the slope can go back away and there can be light. Natural light on that basement.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Well, this is our last meeting of the year.
Yes.
So I want to wish each and every one of you and your families a happy holiday season and a happy new year, as well as the administration and staff. It's been a great year, and I look forward to another one next year. So we are adjourned.